Konbanwa. Welcome to webinar 13. Have you heard of running dictation? Tonight's Express PD, we're going to look at a fantastic activity that can be adapted to any text, any age or proficiency level. My students absolutely love it. The bonus is that as well as high engagement, it's another collaborative input activity. I'll go through how I've used it in my classes and what's worked for me. But first, a little bit of an overview. So running dictation is a high energy, fast-paced review activity. And as I said, you can use this for any, as an activity to review any text. It could be a story, some content that you've looked at, facts or topics. It's really fun, a fun input activity. There's more input, and so there's more exposure to the language, and with more exposure, more input, that's what we need for language acquisition. So running dictation uses all of the skills, listening, speaking, reading and writing, and making it a really powerful tool for language acquisition. So basically, the students work in pairs or small groups to reconstruct a piece of text. So this example that I'm going to go through with you is the small group approach, but you can definitely modify this for pair work. So in groups of about 4, it would look like this. Student A runs to find a snippet of text which has been cut out and displayed around the classroom or a designated area. That person reads the text in the target language. So in our case, it would be Japanese, and then runs back to student B and tells student B what it was in the target language. So in Japanese, I would say what they read. Student B writes down the Japanese script or romaji, depending on your students, and then gives the paper to student C. So student C then illustrates the text and passes it to student D. Student D then collects, checks, and hands it to the teacher. So what you need, it's super straightforward. You need a set of sentence strips. As I said, you can choose romaji for extra scaffolding or kana for extension, or a mixture of both depending on your cohort of students. You need an answer sheet per group, and if you're using the artist student C, you'll need some pencils, coloring pencils for each group. So let's look at the jobs. In the group of 4, there are the jobs, the student jobs of runner. So the runner runs to the location and reads the text. Here's the example. Boris wa tori desu. So they read that, runs back to the team to report back in Japanese what was written. So they would say to their team, Boris wa tori desu. So the secretary is student B. They write down what the runner says in script or romaji, hands that piece of paper to the artist, which is student C. They illustrate the picture. So the coloured pencils are necessary if you're looking at details such as colour. And, you know, it's not necessary to be a perfect picture. It just has to show all the elements that were written down. So not an art competition. And you might need to make that clear to the class. So then the artist then would hand it to the editor. The editor's job is to really cheer all the members of the team, encouraging one another to, to band together, and also to check for quality before they pass on the piece of paper to the teacher for checking. Oops. And just back here. And then I do like to rotate so that not the same person is doing the same job, but you can rotate after a round or two. So what text? I've had the best success with beginners when I've kept the text really short and used familiar language. So as many of you would know, I am a big advocate for using the Super 7 verbs with beginners. And I look at running dictation as an opportunity to revise the language and provide more input and exposure in a novel way. So, yep, for short, familiar text used for revision. You could use a shared reading book that you have shared as a group. You could use a graded reader like one of the JapanEasyReads books here. It could be a co-created story that the class knows the content of. It could be a story recap that the class has co-written together. So a couple of suggestions or tips that I'd like to share with you. You can change the text length and complexity based on the student's proficiency level, so that this is also a great revision activity for more advanced levels. Just use it as a revision or consolidation activity, not for the purpose of introducing new language. If needed, use slightly different texts for the different groups. So individual groups focus on their own text, not on other groups. Avoids that copying temptation. And you could, for example, use either romaji or hiragana or a combo to scaffold this. And I'll show you an example of that in a minute. So this activity really does foster both language development and teamwork. And as I've said, it is a really great addition to the languages classroom. These are examples of the reading strips the students would be looking for. So basically you've got that, you cut out the numbered text, the strips, and the teacher would spread them around the classroom or designated area. So, you can make it a little bit challenging, a few little sneaky hides so that it becomes, a fun activity to try and find them as well as decoding them. And you can see here, so I've got Boris running dictation there in full script. An example using some romaji support is in the middle there. And this is really, I feel, really important because we're really trying to nurture the reading fluency and reading for meaning. And if we're focusing on the Super 7 for beginners, and we are really recycling and using the Super 7 in lots of different novel ways, it's not considered arduous then. So there might be, for example, some proper nouns that the students may not be super familiar with, but what we really want is for them to be very, very clear and solid on the language chunks that we've been using, like des, janai des, being aware of cup, making the question at the end. So yeah, if we look at running dictation as a way to really get extra sneaky input in, where they're getting exposure to the high-frequency kanji, the high-frequency words, and they're doing it in a supportive way with their peers, I think it really does warrant a top spot. And for people who haven't tried running dictation to try it in your class, I think that you will be pleasantly surprised with the amount of enjoyment and input that this provides the students. So the answer sheet there, in the example that I gave you, so for question 1 here, Boris wa, can hardly see that, Boris wa nan desu ka? So here you would copy that down, and Boris wa nan desu ka? And in here you would put the picture. So this one might be a little bit tricky. So if to draw, so you might need to support that with a little bit of English instead of a picture. Let's try the next one. Boris wa inu desu ka? So again, here you would copy that down. Boris wa inu desu ka? And this is the picture or the English to show the meaning, to show that you've made the students have comprehension of that. So the benefits, I really hope that this short and sweet PD has convinced you of the benefits of running dictation and motivates you to perhaps trial it in your classes. I would love to know how it has gone for your students. But just to recap, the benefits that I can see are that it does tap into multiple skills. So it combines physical activity with reading, speaking, listening, and writing. So it's an all-round holistic activity. It promotes and encourages teamwork and communication amongst the students, and any chance that we can encourage our students to work more collaboratively and with a sense of team spirit, I think that is a bonus. It really does build listening and memory skills and enhances retention and comprehension of the target language structures. It does provide opportunities for differentiated learning, and so it's adaptable for all proficiency levels by modifying text difficulty or the input, hiragana versus romaji. And perhaps most importantly, it's really motivating and fun. It adds energy and novelty to the classroom, to what can be reading activities can be dry, and this is a way to really keep students engaged by keeping it very, very novel and movement. So, okay, it might be time for a brain break. Webinar 8 goes into a lot of detail of 12 different brain breaks, so please check that out. But I had a recent request for more brain breaks specifically for primary students that would be suitable for primary students. And while this one does fit the bill, I don't think it is exclusively for younger students. It's quick and it's simple, and you only need a coin to play. And just a reminder too that for brain breaks to be super effective, it's best to keep them under 3 minutes. So let's have a look. So this brain break is called heads or tails. So the students guess what they think it will be. Will it be heads or will it be tails? If they think it will be heads, they touch their head. For tails, they touch their bottom. So for the Japanese teachers here is a short script that you might like to use. And for other language teachers, I'm sure that you'll be able, this will give you a bit of an idea of how you can modify this to give the instructions really simply. I forgot my prop. We'll modify. So I might say, Minasan, tatte kudasai. Game o shimashou. Game no namae wa atama ka oshiri desu. Coin. You get the idea. Coin ga arimasu. Atama desu. Oshiri desu. Atete kudasai or guess shite kudasai. Atama da to omotta ra te o atama ni oite kudasai. そしてお尻だと思ったら手をお尻に置いてください. So giving the instructions, and again, if you're using this one on rotation, the students get used to those words in context. Gestures I find really helpful too, and I use those as much as I can. The students do get used to the gestures that I use to provide some scaffolding. Okay. If your goal is to make the language in the brain break comprehensible so that the students can engage easily, using cognates or borrowed words like gesu is a good idea. For older students, you may want to introduce atete mite for take a guess and see. There is scope for modifying this, but I wanted to give an example of how you can give the instructions in Japanese or the target language really simply, and with the additional support of the visuals and the gestures, it does make it very comprehensible. So then the teacher tosses the coin and checks the responses. For example, Dare ga atama da to omoimashita ka? And then count the students, count the number of students. Hitori, futari, sannin. Sannin ga atama da to omoimashita. Students can then keep a record of their scores, and you can play between 2 and 3 minutes, so a few rounds, and it's quick and easy and fun. Well, that's it. If you have any questions or you'd like to see more webinars like this, and you're not a member already, consider joining the JapanEasyReads community. You can contact me at JapanEasyReads@gmail.com. So, 頑張りましょう.